Good afternoon. We're back in session for the going here. This is the October 7th meeting of the Expanded Budget Committee of Tompkins County. And some preliminary things tonight. One, I just want to remind folks that these meetings now are about our discussions among ourselves. We do have, we're glad to have others here, but their chance to advocate for their OTRs was in the first meetings we had. So if you need to talk to somebody or ask them to come up by something, that's fine. But we don't want any folks coming up to give us another full round of the advocacy for whatever we're talking about. I think that's kind of important. Our county administrator, Lisa Holmes, has asked for some time tonight to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going budget as far as the, I don't know, what would you say as far as the over target money and the fund balance?
Thank you, Mike. I will be crisp. I just have a couple of slides. I thought it would be valuable to go over just so that everyone has a clear understanding of where we stand with the tax levy increase as well as the one-time funds available for allocation in the budget. So in terms of the tax levy, what was in my recommended budget was a property tax levy about $55.7 million. Doing the math and taking that over the 2024 property tax levy, that amounted to a 4.34% increase. Our October 1st adjustment, or the October surprise, as Mike Lane called it, was amounted to $950 to add to the target, and that led to an adjusted property tax levy of $54.8 million, or the adjusted levy increase then changed to 2.56%. So that's where we started things off at last Thursday's first voting meeting, was 2.56%. At the end of that voting meeting, after the adjustments that had been taken into account based on the legislative amendments, we now stand at 2.63%. And the property tax cap, as we know, is 4.45%. So that's where we stand with the target budget. The next page, just a reminder of the one-time funds. No general fund balance was used in the county administrator's recommended budget to fund one-time requests. We instead identified capital projects for which we're paying debt service under the tax levy, and we budgeted debt service reserve toward those projects, thus freeing up funds in the 2025 operating budget that could be used one time only toward those one-time projects. So again, no general fund balance used to fund the one-time requests. And then looking at what we did, we identified with the help of finance, $3,384,580 available in the debt service reserve. That was freed up, as I just went over. In the county administrator's recommended budget, I allocated $2.989 million in one-time, to fund one-time projects, leaving approximately $395,000 still available to allocate in these voting meetings. And as of last week's voting meeting, with the monies that were freed up and put in from the Natural Resources Capital Project, there is now $665,991 in those one-time funds available to allocate toward one time. So I just wanted to give that update as to where things stand. I will email this to everyone to have as a reference, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So that figure was after our meeting on the 3rd?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because approximately $400,000 was taken, well, exactly $400,000 was taken from the natural infrastructure and made available to allocate toward one-time expenses.
Does anyone have any questions for Lisa? Randy?
Thank you, Lisa. Would that deplete the full debt service reserve or just a portion of it?
Just a portion of it. This is the amount available over and above what we have as a recommended minimum in that reserve.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lee?
Dan reported at the last meeting that some funding may be going back into the community recovery fund. And has that been earmarked at this point for any usage?
I would have to go back, and it's, what, $75,000, $80,000?
75, yeah. There'll be a resolution coming forward requesting to use those in the green fleet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, Lisa, thank you for that information. That was helpful.
Welcome.
Well, let's get into tonight's schedule. Shauna Black has a proposed amendment for the county clerk's office. Shauna?
Are we going to start with the county clerks, or are we going to do the finance from from Thursday night? We didn't finish.
Good.
Is that all right?
Yeah, it went right over my head. We should probably start with the finance, excuse me.
Okay, I would like to move the amendment to add purchasing staff into our finance department and add $84,565 for a one-time multi-year.
Seconded by Deborah. You want to say something about it?
Sure. I think one thing that we've heard feedback from our staff is that there are some hiccups in our system whenever it comes to our accounting department. And what we've heard from the accounting department is that they need more staff. And so in order to provide a good foundation for the county, it makes sense that we provide this position.
Other?
And I'll let Lori add to that if there's anything else I'm missing.
No, that's correct. I think I've been loud and clear on that.
Okay.
Randy?
Yes, Lori, what would be the primary benefit of an additional person?
So the primary benefit would be to help us in our workload. Currently, we are anticipating over 850 purchase orders and bids for this current year, which is an increase of over 150 from last year. As we've talked about, I'd like to start working towards POs and requisitions, which will require more approvals from the purchasing department, so to help keep up with that load, as well as continuing to work with the procurement policy and compliance with the procurement policy, and revising the procurement policy needs staff to be able to work on that and roll out the training of that.
If I had my druthers, we wouldn't have any extra staff this year, but I really think this is important. Randy?
Yes, so this would be a person, an additional person in the purchasing function?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Rich?
Just to be clear, this should help in terms of being able to help the departments in being able to get their information to you to so you can see current financial position better as well.
It will help us get the purchase orders in compliance with our policy and out in a hopefully more timely manner.
But it'll help you see better, too. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Ready to vote? At this point, I think we can do hand vote. Travis may join us later. He's at a conference, but he comes on, we may have to go to roll call. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Go ahead, Shauna.
The next amendment that I have is for additional software to be purchased. It would be a one-time multi-year expense, and it's out of the Finance Department. And I'll let Lori.
You're moving that?
If I can move that, please,
Is there
thank
a
you.
second? Seconded by Veronica. Go ahead.
And Lori, do you mind talking to this amendment, please?
Yes, this is for software that we've been investigating. We will be doing getting some quotes for that software, but basically the gist is threefold. One, helping us with creation of journal entries for our lease and subscription-based technology requirements that we've had that we're currently paying our auditors to help us with. It would also help us with developing a cash flow information in our system, as well as better tracking of our debt payments by project within the bond schedules.
Deborah?
I just have a question. So it's 21,000 in Target. Is that the annual subscription cost?
Yes, year one is 20,000, year two is 21,000, and year three is 2250.
So in 2025, is it going to be 20 or 21?
It will be 21.
Okay, just making sure, thanks. And part of the reason we need this is because of the new GASB requirements, right?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Veronica? Then Greg?
To clarify, the amendment I'm looking at is putting this and also the previous one, even though it's not on the table right now, in one-time funds. Is that what we're intending?
Oh.
Yeah, initially I did have that multi-year one-time, but I'm not opposed to it going into Target if we see this as something that we need indefinitely.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify.
Greg's next. Greg?
That was my concern. I feel like there's,
Should be in Target.
well, I don't necessarily, I mean, I have strong opinions where it goes, but I'm going to reserve those for a minute. I think it's important that when we're addressing the amendments, that we're clear on if it's target or one time, and I think that there's some language being used interchangeably or just a lack of clarity would be all that I would be asking for. So I'll leave it at that.
Deborah?
I think if we're adding staff, it should either be like a 3-year OTR or it should be Target because, yeah.
I was clear on that for the staff member.
What did you say?
I said one-time multi-year, because that's typically what we do is do it for 3 years.
Which is the same, it's on here, okay.
Okay.
Greg, was there something else?
No, I was just saying, that is exactly what Shauna said. I just want to make sure that that was understood in the interpretation by everybody around the table.
So then you're moving a 3-year, one-time, 3-year, right?
On both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm opposed to something different if someone would like something different on the software.
Yeah, see how it works.
Not seeing any more hands. Ready to vote? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Now, Shauna, I think you're still up for the county clerk.
Okay, I would like to make an amendment, number 15, for scanning services, and this is for Target in the amount of $16,994. I so move.
seconded by Greg. Randy?
Yeah, so this is something that it's Target and it's your software you're currently using? Or a system you're currently using?
County Clerk Maureen Reagan.
Sorry about that. Oh,
Round
yep.
of-
That's a late.
Sorry.
Spoke.
That's grabbing stuff. So this is for, it's a part-time, it's funding to restore it to full-time. We're taking a full-time position, making it part-time.
Okay. And then you mentioned that some grant funding would be jeopardized if this wasn't approved. Could
Yes.
you talk about that a
Yes.
little bit?
Yes, I would have to go through, outsource it through a NICID company if we didn't have former challenge staff on as our employees.
Could you remind us what NICED is?
New York State Industries for the Disabled.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? Unanimous. Shawna, still up, Human Resources, staffing.
Okay, thank you. I would like to move amendment number 10, Human Resources, to add a staff person, and this will be a multi-year one-time.
Is there a second? Seconded by Susan.
And if Ruby could come up and talk to us a little bit about this position, that would be helpful.
This is funding for training and development coordinator to mitigate the reduction in the training and training fund. This coordinator, instead of sending for training outside of the county, would coordinate in-house trainings and in-house trainers that are already providing some of the training within the county.
Amanda?
Well, I guess just to the previous discussion, why would this be one time? I mean, multi-year one time. Why wouldn't we have it in Target?
I assumed it was a budget mechanism to stay below the tax cap.
Deborah?
Yeah, I guess, to the extent that some of our staffing legislative amendments are maintenance of effort, for example, I have no problem seeing those being put in Target. But if we're adding new positions in this year, which is difficult, I think a multi-year OTR might be a better way to do it. Just let's see how this works. Let's see if we need to add it to Target.
Right, okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Shawna?
I think the thought, too, was that sometimes we create these positions, and over the years, we realize that we want it to do something else, or we might want them to do different duties, and sometimes we create these positions, and they just don't work. And so it gives us a chance to kind of test drive something before we add it to budget.
Exactly.
Do we vote? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Let's see, Deborah, you're next. Tompkins Community Action.
Yeah, this just seemed like a real no-brainer to me. Tompkins Community Action is an organization that does a massive amount of good in our community and takes very little from the county taxpayers. They're really energetic about going out and finding other funding sources. And I just didn't want to see their already small budget cut. Another fact that weighs in favor of passing this is that a good chunk of this money would leverage federal funding for Early Head Start, which is an extremely valuable program.
I do need a second, I forgot to ask. Veronica. Discussion. Those in favor? Are there any opposed? Unanimous. Deborah, Workforce Development.
So I'm up again. Yes, this is another small department that unfortunately, our small departments get hit pretty hard with some of these 5% reductions. I have to say that since our new workforce development director joined our staff a couple of years ago, the relationship between our workforce development department and IAED, with whom we necessarily work closely, has never been so good, and I certainly don't want to see it in any way hobbled by a 5% cut.
Greg?
Sorry, are we going to second?
Yeah, there was.
My apologies. You're seconding it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Or
But there was.
I seconded the previous one. I would second this, but I don't think I,
All right.
Oh, I thought you did.
She's keeping track over
I don't
here.
remember.
She's keeping us on, she's got Greg.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll get you another time, Veronica. Randy?
Yeah, Deborah, thanks for bringing this forward. I think that the workforce development's got some momentum going, and we should continue to help them.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Let's vote. Those in favor? Are there any opposed? We have 2 opposed. That passes. Veronica, workforce development.
yes, I'd like to move a OTR for number 30, $96,470 in target to add a transition workforce specialist.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ann.
It's kind of similar but more specific to what Deborah was saying. This is a small department. They're at, if not beyond, capacity at the work they're doing, and they have multiple programs, including partnerships with BOCES, with DSS, with other organizations, much of which has like local dollars can be leveraged to bring in outside dollars as well. So they're in they are in an upswing helping people in our county be employed, which is good for them and also economically productive, but a lot of the stuff that they're looking at doing is actually not going to be done if they don't at the current staffing levels. And I know it just came in, but I would encourage folks to take a look at the letters Chris Bond forwarded along earlier today, and or simply the, the registered statements in the feedback form on our budget portal, about half of which are supporting funding workforce development.
Deborah?
I have a question. So this would be a new position, right?
It would be there are, if I'm reading this right, but Chris, correct me if I say something wrong, it would be a new position, but it's an existing title, of which there are 2, and there would be a 3rd.
So we would be adding another position?
Correct.
So I guess, as Shanna and I mentioned when we were discussing whether to put something in target or whether to put it in a multi-year OTR, I would be inclined, I think I'm going to move to have this go into a 3-year OTR instead of target.
Could I add to the extra position part? Question that was asked.
Right after she's moving something.
Just a minute now.
Sorry about that.
Ann's, we'll come back to it, Chris. So you're moving what?
I'm moving that instead of putting this additional person in an existing job description in target, we put it in a 3-year OTR.
Is that friendly?
It's friendly to me.
Me too.
Friendly to the mover and seconder. Okay, so is it unfriendly to anyone? All right, that becomes the main motion. Chris, do you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say the former Office of Employment Training Department, they had 3 people on the youth staff. So there were 2 transition workforce specialists and then a workforce development coordinator that oversaw that team. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough money to fund that workforce development coordinator position, so it just disappeared. About almost like a fifth of our so we get the share from the county, and about $92,000 of that goes towards rent at Center Ithaca and then the board office. So that's something we would like to use for our position. But with our WIO grants not going up, wage and fringe going up and things like that, we just hit the breaking point of where we just didn't have enough money to fund that position. And I brought up this position as another transition workforce specialist, Diane and I, who's joining us from Florida on vacation. Thanks for coming, Diane. We felt that we could do 3 transition workforce specialists instead of having the more expensive coordinator position that originally existed on the youth team. So we felt through the restructure process that we could go a grade lower also. So we are also, this just gets us back to the bare minimum, because if you look at our FTEs, this is the lowest it's been at the Career Center.
All right, thanks
so
for
it's
that.
not extra.
Thanks
so.
for the clarification. Yep. We appreciate that. Somebody else had hands. Was it you, Greg? Or it was Randy, I guess?
Yeah, what would the primary benefit be of this new position or additional position, or however you want to state it?
Yeah, so the first benefit it would keep us in compliance, because there's a lot of paperwork that goes with participants that come into the Career Center, because we're serving high needs population, so they do have to hit certain requirements, and along with that, they need to do case notes. So this just helps us stay in compliance with what we're doing. So far, we've been a low-risk area in our program and fiscal oversight, but there are a couple looming things that I've gotten a heads up from the Department of Labor that we need to adjust, and as it is now, it's very hard to catch up with all that stuff when we're short-staffed. And then the second part is this just continues to help with our, building our programs out. Essentially, we have Direct to Work, Tompkins Build. I'm working with Loja on the Green Pathways Energy Warriors. These are extra programs that just never existed before, and we're not at capacity to support these programs. There is more money coming in from the state, for the youth employment program, which is like our summer youth employment, but outside the summer, and that has to do with the GIVE initiative, so youth at risk with gun violence. So there's $375K that is ours. All I have to do is shake the virtual hand in Albany, and we can run with that money and bring that money into the area. So that money would be used at different work sites all throughout the area, like with the summer youth employment. If you read the Tompkins Weekly cover story, we were at the Dryden Library. So basically, we're taking money and dropping it off in all these different partners' locations, like we go to GEOC, Southside, just tons of places.
Okay.
So
it
allows us to implement those dollars also.
Thank you,
appreciate
Chris.
that.
I'll stop.
Ann?
Yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs of what you do. I know some of what you do and what your department does. And so just knowing a little bit and coming to 1 or 2 of your meetings that you have in the community to help coordinate. And if you haven't been to one of these meetings, or just to listen to some of the stories of all it takes, it's not just helping somebody apply for a job, filling out an application, and they have a job. There are so much hand-holding and helping with the little steps, and then the coordination, in the community that your department is doing with all of these organizations. There's a ton. You only listed like 1 or 2. So you are helping with the coordination, which is something we often ask here at the county. There's so much going on. Our folks working together, and you are instrumental and your department in helping make that happen and wraparound services for people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ready to vote on this? Those in favor? Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed. That passes.
Thank you.
Get to work.
All right.
Get to
Appreciate it.
We're up to Rich John, District Attorney.
Thank you, Mike. This is on page 4-94 of your book. And the district attorney came in and talked to us about the cap court. This is the centralized arraignment part. And his request was to provide a payment to district attorney's office for their appearance at the cap court. Currently, they're not attending. And this, I believe, would be a significant improvement to processing people through the criminal justice system faster and more fairly. He had asked for $125,885, and I basically cut that in half. The cap court does not meet every day, and I believe the calculation for this was to match half of what the assigned counsel program is paying assigned counsel attorneys to appear.
Is there a second?
Oh, sorry.
Seconded by Veronica.
Thank you. At any rate, it would not pay for the full amount he was requesting, but it would provide some payment to have the district attorney's office there. Thanks.
Shauna.
I would like to make an amendment to move this into one-time funding and not target.
That'd be friendly from me.
Thank you.
Friendly for the seconder, Veronica? Yes. Okay, so now the main motion is for $67,500 in one-time funding.
Point of information?
Is that one-time 1 year we're talking?
Yes.
Got it. She's taking notes over here. We got to make sure she gets it right. She always does. Discussion. Veronica?
I guess I'd like to ask Matt, unless Rich knows, how you described how the funding that you requested would be used. If you get half of it, how would you deploy that?
Well, to clarify first, the assigned counsel attorneys get $350 for appearing at the morning session and $350 for appearing at the evening session. So this is effectively valuing the prosecutor's time in my office at 1/4 the amount of the value of similarly qualified and competent professionals. It would be for a stipend to physically appear at the jail for these arraignments. They take place at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day. It's not every single day, but it's virtually every day. You can't count on it not being, there being no cases. So essentially, if this proposal is passed, the assigned counsel attorneys get $350 for showing up. We'd get $185 for showing up for doing the same thing.
Rich?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's fair.
Understood.
But I think it would be an improvement to our criminal justice system if the district attorney was there, and this is an attempt to get you there. If you think it isn't enough and you wouldn't send your people, then I'll withdraw it.
That's the problem, is that we need to be there. We want to be there. If you pay us anything, that's better than nothing. But it's, to be frank, I think it's overall disrespectful to my attorneys who work very hard and are dedicated.
I mean no disrespect, man.
And I think that's unfortunately the word that I have to use.
Others? Randy? I'm sorry, Dan was first, then Randy.
Isn't it true that assigned counsel is funded by the state and this is local money?
This is not local money. It comes from the grant that's called the Aid to Prosecution Grant. We got $208,000 from DCJS this year to help supplement prosecution efforts, and we are not being allowed to use that money towards this effort.
Well, we did hear a different explanation of how that money was agreed to and allocated last time, so I'm not, it's hard for me to know which version is right.
Randy?
Yeah, so this is half of the original request?
Right.
Veronica?
I just want to see what happens. I'd like to move to amend this amendment to the original requested value of $125,885. It's still 1 year, one time.
I guess we can't. We can't amend to amend because it's already an amendment of the amendment.
I don't think that's right.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
All right, let's think it through.
Is that such a thing?
We have an amendment,
Point of order. Point of order.
and then,
That was friendly.
yes, you can amend it once. All right, I take it back. You're right.
Not friendly. I'd like to see this
Not friendly?
original.
How about, it wasn't friendly the second, it doesn't matter. So, just a minute. Okay, so we have a motion for an amendment to what's on the floor. Is there a second for Veronica's amendment to increase it to the full amount? Seconded by Randy. Is there discussion on Veronica's amendment to the main motion? Go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, I actually ran into some attorneys here in town over a few weekends ago, and one of the things that they also pointed out is sometimes whenever they have the need for a district attorney at one of the events, it can just take 15 minutes. Many times it could just take 10 or 15 minutes. So if we're talking about someone just popping in, I would have a really hard time justifying $350 at the expense of our taxpayers for a 15-minute time slot.
Well, I think that's wrong on two levels. One, this is also 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Christmas and on holidays, on weekends. And these arraignments don't take 15 minutes. I don't know who was saying they do. They take an hour. And if there's more than one, they take an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's just, I don't know. I'd like to know the person who says it takes 15 minutes, because that's not correct.
All right.
And they're outside of business hours.
Thank you, Matt. Veronica?
I guess maybe these are questions. One, to clarify, is the district attorney person or ADA, whoever, would have to show up in person? Is that correct? Or can they just call in from their hangout? Okay, so it's probably going to take a lot more than 15 minutes, even if the actual arrangement is arraignment, excuse me. And then this might not be a clear question to answer, but my understanding from what Matt shared before was that having a DA there in many cases saves work that ends up getting done later, not maybe all at once, but a lot of like back and forth communication, following up that could have been sometimes people getting I am going to use the wrong criminal legal system language, so I'll stop that sentence, but it's not like we pay for this in some form, is my understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong, anyone.
One example of how the county can save money is when somebody is brought to be arraigned and they have 2 prior felony convictions, the law, and they're charged with a felony, the law requires them to be remanded to jail. We can screen those cases very quickly. If it's a case that we're not going to present evidence to keep the person in jail, we can tell the judge, schedule them for court the next business day so they're not sitting in jail, because otherwise the judge has 6 days to schedule that hearing, and sometimes they schedule it out 6 days later. That person sits in jail for 6 days instead of 1 day, where if we're there, we can make that decision at the moment. That's not happening now because judges often don't call us at all. Sometimes they call us, but having us there could literally translate into many days of jail that people are not sitting there, which is obviously their liberty, which is the most important thing, but also it does translate to financial savings.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, Randy?
Yeah, I have a question about the budget. So I'm looking at your 2024 budget, and you're talking about the grant that you're getting, and it shows that for your budget this year, $415,000 roughly in revenue from grants. But so far this year, we've received $45,000. So is that money going to come in, or how does that, I'm just curious, is that going to happen?
The timing of when we get the money for the grants is a surprise to me. When it comes in, I'm notified. We have 3 main grants. One of them is to compensate us for our discovery-related expenses. That's like $250,000. There's a grant that covers part of the DA salary, my salary, that every county gets. That's $70,000. And then this other aid to prosecution grant is the remainder. That is labeled fiscal year 24, 25, so it's the mid-year to the mid-year, but it's a grant that we've gotten all 8 years that I've been here. It's gone up quite a bit in the last year.
Yeah, it's projected for next year total of $484,000 for your budget.
That's the total number of grants from the 3 that I described.
Okay, I was just curious, is there, do we typically get this money? Do we know we're going to get it for sure, or how does that?
Well, 2 years ago, and for the first 6 years of my tenure, the aid to prosecution grant was $40,800. Last year, it went up to $180,000. And last year, it was I did not propose to pay the stipend, and essentially that money got rolled into our budget to pay our cable bill. This year, it went from $180,000 to $208,700.
So this is going to come back to you, Lori, because I'm curious, is this something that would be tracked? How do you know if you don't know till the check comes in? I mean, are you applying for these things, or I'm not sure how it works, so.
DCJS, whenever they've pledged the grants, we've gotten them. They've never stiffed us.
Okay. Thanks.
Other comments? Ann, I'm sorry, your hand was up.
Thank you. Since this was brought up, I think one of the things I was going to ask, but I think it's clarified of like how much time it can actually take. But I think, coming in, there's probably case reviews and other things they need to do, phone calls and meeting with the clients, different things. So it's not always just showing up. Is that correct?
That's true. We are able to get the paperwork at an earlier point and identify issues with it, fix them if possible. I mean, I do many arraignments myself every week and in regular court. And it's possible to do one in 15 minutes, but that would be the rare exception. Typically, it's longer. You have to wait around for the defense attorney to meet with their client and talk over the case and the rights, and so it's more like an hour average per arraignment.
And so I used to work a job where I was on call, and many years ago, but I got a certain amount for being on call, and then I got more money if I went out and had to work. So I don't know if this is something to be considered, that there's a certain amount just to be on call. If they have to go out, it's more money. Just trying to look at, economize on that. So I don't know if you wanted to answer that, and then I had one more question.
Well, I think if they are not called to do an arraignment, either time, morning, 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., they wouldn't get the stipend, even if they are scheduled to be that person to appear.
So if they would be on call, but if they didn't get called out, they wouldn't get that stipend?
That's how I had planned it, because they don't have to drive to the public safety building and take that time out.
Okay. And then the last question, which I think some of us are struggling with, is that it appears that you had agreed for this particular funding to go into staffing. And so now, again, it appears, I'm not sure, maybe we're trying to figure that out, that you're asking for that funding to go for this. And so I think that's kind of a question like, would this be addition, because the way that the funding is now, it's like additional funding for the county, and maybe that's not your purview at all, maybe that's our struggle of, because this is going to add more money onto the budget, so.
Well, there's a $208,000 grant. I'm proposing that $125,000 of it be used for this purpose. The other goes towards the salary increases. That's $80,000 toward those.
But that's not how much you got initially, right?
The amount of the grant, the aid to prosecution grant, is $208,000.
But last year it was?
It was $180,000.
Right, so there's just the numbers aren't.
It went up. Essentially, I'm paying a penalty for not trying to use that money directly for my office last year.
Right,
So,
I mean, I'm not saying a penalty, I'm just saying,
All right,
yeah,
let's-
that's what we're struggling with.
Can we move on?
Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Why the idea of a stipend and not just the application to salaries and make it a job expectation that there's some sort of rotational, piece? Because my thought with the stipend, right, if you're getting a $208,000 aid to prosecution grant, and we're now talking about $135,000 in grant money, and you're saying it's likely every day but not every day, then the money that's not used goes back into the county general fund balance because there's no rollover. So why not pay our prosecutors, because I don't know, again, I don't know how many people in your office attend the cap arraignments, right? Is out of the, I think you, 9 88?
We would have 9 at full staff. I would not do it. I could, but I wouldn't take the stipend. If I had to go, I would just do it. But it's an opportunity for those attorneys in my office. There are right now 7 others to earn extra money to supplement their income. If it was just an increase in their salary, I would love for that to be the case, but this is an extra benefit to the county that's above the 40 hours that they're working. So I think it's a good proposal to give them an opportunity. One person might volunteer to do it 3 times a week, as opposed to the others not doing as much, but it's going to be staffed 7 days a week.
And is it, if they do this outside of their 40 hours, are they also collecting comp time for that time over and above the 40 hours?
I would say no, because they're being compensated for that time.
Okay.
It's essentially a flat fee for that time.
Okay. I would just like to say that I certainly understand our colleagues wanting to advocate for department, but I find it difficult to say that we're appreciating one professional above another, and that's not the way the county works. We do what we can, and in a tough budget year. I would leave it at that. I have a question. Do we still need a second? No. We've got it. But there is a question, Veronica. Are you moving this, your amendment to the amendment, as one time, which is what the original motion was?
Yes.
Okay.
I was amending to only change the dollar amount and nothing else about it.
All right. Okay, are we ready to vote on Veronica's motion to amend this to, what's the figure, 120, 134, 135? 125? Trying to do a math in my head here.
135 is double.
What I said was the original request, which is a little less than double, and I've lost it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
$125,885.
Right, so you're moving it at 125.8. What was the figure, 125?
125,885.
885.
The same thing that's in the budget book requested OTR.
Okay. Everyone clear on what you're voting for on the amendment? If this passes, that becomes the main motion. We vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who am I missing? Susan, 7. That fails. So we're back to the main motion, which is the 67.5. Further discussion on that. Greg?
I think the interesting thing that Matt said, and I also think we should recognize the fact that Matt is also an elected official.
Absolutely.
And is, put in place to make sure that our criminal justice system is maintained in an equitable way. This idea that they could reduce the time of incarceration by this, and that anytime we ask staff to go over and above the normal time that they spend in a job function or outside of normal hours, they're getting some sort of additional benefit, to my understanding, in terms of comp time or additional time like that. I think this is a fair request and also could help alleviate some of the strain and some of the additional expense on our system by keeping the prosecution moving along and encouraging and incentivizing that. And I do hear, and I can see how the argument can be made that it does have an appearance that we're valuing one professional's time differently than the other in the same function. I think that's an adequate comment to make. And so hopefully we can get this passed at 67,500 because I do think it's worthwhile. And folks who are working outside of normal hours and being available on holidays and things like that, there should be some financial consideration for.
Anyone else? All right, we're voting on the main motion. That is as proposed by Rich John, 67.5, but it's at one time. I'm sorry? One time, 1 year. Those in favor? Are there any opposed? 1, 2, 3 opposed. That passes. Thank you, Matt. Rich, you're up again for the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mike. This is on page 4-236 of your book, and this is to restore the 5% cut reinstatement in the jail, to allow full staffing for the nurse position and the forensic counselor. And the reason I'm proposing this is that I think the sheriff is right in indicating that we would end up spending a lot more money if we don't have these positions, because you have to bring either professionals into the jail or transport the inmate to a facility somewhere else. So you're taking up time of either road patrol deputies or corrections officer staff to do all of that. And further, having those professionals on site is a safety provision to make it safer for the inmates in the jail and to make our jail function better and to meet our expectations along with all of our ATIs. So it's working not only for people outside the jail, but in it. Thanks.
Who's the second? Veronica? Discussion. Greg? Then Veronica.
Yes, sir. I fully support this. I guess I have a question for either Lisa, or I guess I'll ask it to Lisa. If eliminating this, I think it's one position, right? The jail nurse?
Yeah, the sheriff is here. He could explain further, but it was basically you'd keep one, you'd lose the other.
And if it would cost us 2 to 3 times more to provide that service, was that additional expense factored in the budget, or where was that? Like, if this goes away and it's not approved, where's the 2 to 3 times more money going to come from in the budget to provide those same services?
So with the amount that I had to work with, I proposed a limited restoration, which I had hoped would at least partially cover some of that, but that was, yes, it was not, that piece was not factored in, but I had hoped that there could be further reallocation to maintain these services.
So if we don't necessarily fund this, would it be expected that we'll have a surprise increase in expenses to provide this service in the budget that's not currently there?
I was hoping for, again, a further reallocation of resources within the sheriff's budget, and perhaps he could speak to that.
Derek?
I don't have a way. Are you asking me a question?
Derek, can you respond?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any funds in my budget to pay for this a different way. I couldn't even tell you how much it would cost. Our anticipation is it would cost more. We reported that at the first budget meeting. So no.
So I guess my question procedurally is, if it's going to cost more if we don't fund this, and there's not additional funds in the sheriff's budget, where's the more come from? Or do we just not provide this service anymore?
Well, with the forensic counselor, I would say we would not be providing that service anymore. With the nursing staff, I don't know how you run a jail without a nurse.
Rich?
Yeah, I think we'd see a reduction in the level of service. And there would be some reallocation and some requests for overtime to move people around to get the help.
Other comments? Deborah, then Shauna.
Yeah, I just want to make a suggestion to my colleagues that we don't assume that the recommended budget didn't consider factors like the ones you're asking about. We didn't give Lisa a hell of a lot of room on some of this.
Just want to know, like,
Yeah,
how are we
no,
going to pay for it if it's going to cost more?
But yeah, let's
Not assuming
just
anything.
yeah,
Donna?
careful.
I think one thing that we've prided ourselves in as a county is to be able to do the things that we are able to do in our jail. And whenever many of us went on the tour of the local jails a few years ago, we came back to Tompkins and said, damn, I'm so glad that we could offer medication assistance. I'm so glad that we could offer a nurse and we can offer therapy and the services that we're able to offer people that stay in our jail. So to take this away, I mean, fiscally it doesn't make sense, but it really is not the right thing to do for the people that have to stay in our jail, so.
Yeah, I totally support this request and continuing to fund these two positions. But if I may, and I'm sorry that I didn't look through all this data at the time of the budget hearings, I'd like to just ask about something about the overall jail budget and why these positions were selected to be cut. I know, Sheriff, you said you couldn't cut any jail staffing because of state requirements. But looking at the FTEs, it looks like the 2025 budget adds one corrections lieutenant that I don't think was mentioned before. And the other thing I'm noticing is that even without this OTR, like suppose we didn't fund it, the total expenses in the corrections budget go up from 2024 to 2025 from 5.7 million to 6.4 million and change. When for the most part, people were looking at 5% cuts. So can you explain that, and why is it that it is these existing positions that were recommended to, well, can you explain that, and I'll hold off first per what Deborah just said.
Okay, I'm sorry, there was an interruption there, so.
You have
the lieutenant position in the corrections division was created and out of a need long before we found ourselves in this current budget issue. The position has been filled, it's much needed. Again, it was before all this happened. We run an operation that is most often run on minimums. We don't have luxury things that we can cut. When we were asked to cut 5%, to be honest, it was almost like a joke to us because there's nowhere to cut. So we have to throw things in there, as ridiculous as they sound, just for the fact of meeting the requirements you're putting on us. And I think Lisa was probably in the same boat as I was. There's just nowhere else to take. We can't take correction officers. We can't. So what do? We were put in a position that's completely impossible, and that applies to all the amendments that are on the table for the sheriff's office tonight. There's just nowhere else to take.
So, thank you. So just to clarify, it was necessary, like, regardless of the budget constraints, it was necessary to add one corrections staff from 2024, or, no, wait a minute. I'm looking at the FTE table and I see this one correction lieutenant in the 2025, but you're saying this position is already filled. So are we talking about the same position? Or did I miss some mid-year change?
Position. Yes, and it's been filled.
Okay.
It has been a while.
Other questions? Ready to vote? So we're talking about the amendment of $127,795 target. Is that right, Rich?
Yeah, because I don't think these positions go away. This one hurts.
Ready to vote?
Call the nurse.
Those in favor? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's unanimous. Go to Dan Klein on youth services, maintain rural youth services system.
Thank you. I would like to move.
Sorry?
On the
Revised schedule.
agenda, there's three more legislative amendments, 52, 53, and 54.
None of the one I'm looking at.
This is the one that came out today, right, Corey?
1:23 p.m. from Corey. I have an email with that amended thing.
Give us just a second to figure out what's going on here.
I don't think we have an updated one.
Yeah, could we maybe get a printed, updated one?
Just the schedule.
Yeah, just the schedule for today.
All right, so must be I have an old schedule, but we'll, if we have a new one, we'll use that. So what is 51? I don't have it in front of me. Coming.
52, actually.
It's 52, 53, and 54.
$52. Mike, this is yours?
Yep.
And it's for,
Yeah, these were all lumped into the budget as one thing. I had Lisa, I asked her to break these apart into three parts to give our legislators more options when considering them. I mean, I'm going to vote for all three, but, you know, I figured you guys might want more options. We could start with 52. That's the special patrol officers, $84,109 as target. If Derek wants to take us through that one, that would be terrific.
Yeah, the special patrol officers, these are positions, again, that we created for the sole purpose of saving money. We scrimped and saved in our current budget for several of these positions, cutting down overtime to create them. These are positions that do all our inmate transports, all our court details, our medical appointments, take inmates to the hospital. Again, if these positions are lost, it's going to fall right back on our correction officers, it's going to fall back on our road patrol, and we've spent the last 6 years trying to keep our law enforcement on the road where they need to be and trying to keep our correction officers in the jail where we need them to be. This will have a huge ripple throughout the entire operations of the sheriff's office if we don't have them. In so many ways, they do a lot of work to alleviate these positions, and all it's going to do is have our deputies and correction officers working more overtime. Our overtime lines are going to be back up to where they used to be, and it's going to have the complete opposite effect of everything we've been trying to do all this time.
did we get a second? No. I need a second. Seconded by Greg. Amanda.
Okay, so because I haven't had a chance to look at these, I'm just wanting to clarify, and I don't have the paper. I think Jordan's getting it. I just want to clarify which one we're talking about, and I'm, pulling it up on my computer here.
He's moved for the Sheriff's Road Patrol, the Special Patrol Officers in Target, $84,109.
Is that number 52?
That is number 52. It's been moved and seconded.
And these are the guys that just sit at the airport, right?
Part of their duties is the airport security, correct?
Shauna?
I guess I have a question about process because I must have missed the email, and so I didn't see this. Whenever people are adding OTRs, I just assumed that they would be falling to the end of our conversation and voting meetings, because I'd actually like more time to
think about it.
Look at the information.
All right, we group these when the departments could be present, and I think because we've got the sheriff here, that might be the reason that it was inserted here. There's no reason we can't postpone it if the group wants to do that and look at it more carefully. Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it hard to make an on-the-spot decision about something huge as this when the email came a few hours ago. I mean, I don't feel like that's how we've done it in the past. It would normally go to the end of the line, and, you know, we apologize to any staff who need to show up again, but that, like, we're the ones making the decision. So, sorry, I don't know.
Mike, would that be acceptable to you?
Completely acceptable. If you want to table it.
Yeah, why
Would it
don't
be
you just
tabled?
withdraw
I don't know
it,
what it would be.
and then
Withdrawn?
we'll put it back on later.
That works.
Randy, is there something?
Well, I was
wanna
going to
say?
suggest
Okay.
the same thing.
Sorry for the confusion here. But I guess we're caught up. So then, therefore, we will go to Dan Klein where we thought we were going.
Thank
Can
you.
you at least tell me if I'm supposed to stay on till the end of tonight's meeting, or am I going to be invited to another day?
I think you're probably going to come back tomorrow.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Just wanted to know. I didn't want to sit here through the whole meeting, not knowing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would like to move OTR 26, maintain rural youth services system.
Is there a second? Seconded by Veronica.
This is on section 4, page 332. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the community in this one, I think more than any other topic this year. They were really good letters. They were not a form letter. They were felt to me very heartfelt from parents talking about their kids and what they've gotten out of this program. This money goes to the municipalities and it's vouchered. So there were some questions the other night about, you know, do we just send money out into the void and don't know what happens to it? This money is vouchered, so if it's not used for some reason, we're not paying for it. The entire amount is matched by the local towns and the municipalities, so it's really leveraging extra money. And we hear sometimes, I don't necessarily agree with this argument, but we do hear that the rural towns feel like they sometimes are left out of county services and don't get the attention that they would like. And this is a good, clear, easy way to address that concern in a way that I think we should be doing anyway.
Discussion. Randy.
Thank you, Dan, for bringing this forward. And I've heard that exact comment from Enfield and Newfield. I think that we're underfunding youth programming, and I support it.
Deborah?
I just had a question. Has this been in target funding before?
I believe so. Kate and Teresa are here to confirm, yes.
Thank you.
This is restoring the cut.
Okay.
Anna?
I think as a county, we provide so much funding for services kind of after the fact, after someone's been incarcerated, after, you know, they've struggled with mental health, after they've done this or this or this. And I think, you know, for me, I really see this as an investment in our youth and, you know, really kind of a preventative step. And so I'm glad that we're restoring this from what it sounds like from my colleagues. And I'm also really thankful that our community reached out to us, because this was something that initially I was like, I don't know. And we had a lot of response, including some of my constituents that gave their stories that these programs really help their kids. So thank you.
Anyone else?
It is target restoration.
The proposal is to have it target. Can we vote? Those in favor? Those opposed? Mike, are you opposed?
Sorry, I am not. I am for. Sorry.
That's unanimous. Veronica, you're next. Youth Services, Maintenance of Effort.
Yeah, thank you. This is the same, the first OTR that the Youth Services Department requested. Just under $20,000, basically, for what it sounds, maintenance of effort in the department in the face of rising costs. I think I'd ask Kate to elaborate if needed.
Well, I need a second first.
Oh, right.
Seconded by Ann.
Yeah. It'll restore funding for printing, professional development, professional services fees to enable collaborations, and this is all a bunch of fundamental stuff so that the department can be closer to robust as opposed to nickel and dimed.
Further discussion? Randy?
Yes, thank you, Veronica, for bringing this forward. I support this. I think it's really important for us to have a strong department there. They're the ones that are really collaborating and bringing all the people together, and we need more of that. So thanks.
Anyone else? Those in favor? Those opposed? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. That passes.
Wait, I think that was 5.
Excuse me, did I miscount? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, oh yes, 5. Putting your hands higher helps, folks. Come on. Okay. Veronica, let's go on to...
Can you say what the vote was?
8 to 5, it passes. Veronica, you have Youth Services Urban Outreach Program.
Yeah, so this is the last Youth Services request for $30,000 to continue funding their urban outreach program, which existed and then died during COVID and loss of staff, and also the bulldozing of one of the apartment complexes that it mostly served, the North Side Apartments. But it is on the upswing, and I think now would be a good time to support this program continuing to exist. I will say timing-wise, I don't spend much time at West Village, but a lot of it is full of kids who are, who get some community grassroots support and programming and out-of-school activities, but could use a lot more. And the North Side apartment complexes, people have been moving in for the past, I don't know, handful of months. Some of the apartments are still being built, so there's a current influx of kids there that I'm sure could use access.
Let me see if I can get a second.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry.
Randy.
Access to programs, as well as I know this year they've just built more partnerships with this program, and I think it would be a shame to kill it now. Yeah.
Greg?
Yeah, I would maybe move to put this out of target, take this out of target, and move it to a one-time 2-year, just so that we could see what the benefits of the new program are. We could collect some data. I do think that there's great value in this, but I would just like to see one-time funds used as opposed to target funds at the moment. Not saying not supportive of target funds in the future, but I think give it a 2-year period to come back with some solid data.
Is that friendly?
It's friendly to me.
Is friendly the seconder? Friendly the seconder. Okay, that becomes the main motion. Then at this point on the table is $30,000 one time for 2 years. Amanda?
I guess I wasn't paying attention for this one, but if I could look at you, Kate, or one of your folks, this was something that CCE was funding for many years. And because I recall they were struggling to get reimbursed from it several years ago. Is there a relationship there anymore?
Can you come up?
You got to come to a mic, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Yeah, no, I think it's been in our department for a number of years. It was funded, do you remember how much we funded them prior to a couple of years ago? Yeah, we had been funding them at about 20,000, and then a couple of years ago when we did our the last open RFP process, they had really stepped up and we're doing large numbers and we're doing really, really well, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And then they had the staff retire. So, but this has been, I mean, they also, the people who ran the program prior actually did receive a lot of grants for their salaries, so we didn't fund it in its entirety. So that may be part of what you're remembering.
I think, yeah, because I distinctly remember us having a discussion around this table about something about CCE funding them so they could continue this program. And yeah, so maybe that was some other portion of it. But so this funding would go through your office?
Yes, it goes,
support them.
yeah, and it's also, they would do invoices, so it's not paid out directly. And I think this 2 years would give us enough time with the rebuilding of the north side apartments. I'd really like to see them get a space in that unit and begin to deal with those families, so it'd be great, yeah.
Rich?
Yeah, just for clarity on page 333, CCE is actually providing the service?
Yes, CCE,
Okay.
yes, they have the staff, yes.
Deborah?
A question. Has anyone approached the city about kicking in some funding for this?
Not since I've been here. So yes, apparently historically they weren't on board, but it's something that I would be happy to do.
I think it's worth giving them a little boost, don't you?
Yep, no, absolutely.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Ann?
Thanks, Kate. Just for clarification, is this, you mentioned an RFP, so does this go through an RFP every year or two?
Yeah, so it goes through our RFP process. We do 3 years of one-time funding that's renewable at the end of each year with an opportunity to extend. So we're now in the second year of the third year for this RFP process.
So just to clarify then, yeah. CCE is currently doing this through the RFP?
Yes.
It could be some other agency. Just want to be clear
Yes.
about that. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're voting on the amendment of $30,000 one time for 2 years. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 10. Those opposed? 3. That passes. Amanda, you're up next, travel and training for the legislature.
Sure, thanks. This was just a discussion about bringing back some of the funding for legislators to go to NISAC next year, and my thought was that it would be specifically for the chair and vice chair to go to the winter and the fall conferences, which each are a little bit over $1,000 each. And then additional funding for Shauna, who is now a board member of NISAC, to go to the various board meetings. Or it could be the chair and vice chair could designate someone else to go if they can't go to those conferences.
Can I get a second? Seconded by Shauna.
So that may be a little bit high. I would go down a little bit on that, but it would not be for local mileage or any other legislators to attend conferences.
Comments? Ann?
So before, I believe the funds were all together, is that correct? The local mileage and travel training, or no? Travel training, or I'm sorry, local mileage is separate from this?
Yes, there are two separate lines.
Okay. And so the amount before for this was like 16,000, 15,000, 16,000?
I don't remember.
What was the total?
This year, it was 28,000 for travel and training and 11,000 for local mileage.
28,000. Okay.
Dan?
So can you just clarify then, is the rest of the, was the rest of the travel training eliminated?
Yes, both.
It'd be
travel and
7,500 total.
Yes.
All right, let's go Shauna, then Amanda again.
So I know that we're all sitting around this table and we're like, how can we justify sending legislators to training if we're cutting our staff training? And in my mind, I'm justifying it in a few ways. One of which is the fact that we make $21,000 a year. And
22.
Oh, 22, sorry. And
yeah, we got a raise.
And while all of us, I'm assuming, probably do not do this for the money, I think we put a lot of time and effort into these jobs. And, the reality is that, I'll speak for myself, personally, I go to NISAC twice a year, and this is where I learn and bring back a lot of information that is very helpful to this county. You talk to other counties, you hear what they're doing about homelessness, about their jail situation, about FMAP, and that's for us as policymakers, for many of us, that's where we get our bright ideas. And so I think having this line item is actually really important for our county. And I think, for some of us, it could be cost prohibitive. If we don't have this line item, then many of us aren't going to be able to afford out of pocket to go to NISAC or to go to other trainings that we could bring back to the county.
We've now been joined by Travis Brooks. Travis, welcome. What we're talking about, Travis, is on our list, amendment, or the ID number 24, which is $7,500 for travel and training for the legislature. Can you hear me all right, Travis?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Amanda?
Yeah, just to reiterate and to state again, this amendment is for the chair and vice chair to attend these conferences. It would not be for anyone else. Or the chair to designate 2 people to go.
Further comments? Ann, then Veronica.
Yeah, I'm going to make an amendment, or propose an amendment, that we increase the total to $14,000, which would be adding in $6,500, and that would still have it at 50% of our costs, or our budget for 2024, if I have the numbers correct, and also allowing that other legislators, besides the chair and vice chair, could minimally go to NISAC or other appropriate state conferences or meetings that they are members of. And then if there's extra money left over, maybe we could look at, I think we could talk amongst ourselves, do it in a friendly way, as we often do, to look at the beginning of the year, who needs to go to what, and then if there's any money left over, who wants to go to what. Because some of us do sit on boards at NICEAG.
Let me get your amendment. What figure are you proposing now?
I'm proposing changing the 7,500 to 14,000, which would be raising it 6,500.
And is that to be target?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second for the amendment? Dan? Randy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused on the numbers. So I'm looking at, this is a legislature's travel budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in this year, our budget's $28,000. And this year, so far, we spent $8,784, according to this book here. So now so in the 2025 budget, we're going to eliminate the entire budget? Is that what, it says zero?
Yep.
Okay, and so you're proposing 15,000 as opposed to the $28,000 budget per year?
I propose 7,500. Ann is proposing
14,000.
14,000.
So if it was 14,000, it'd be half of what the budget is this year?
Right, exactly.
I just want to make sure I got my math right, so.
Donna, on Ann's amendment.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Katrina, the numbers year to date, did that include, I know that a few of us went to the fall NICEAG, did that include those numbers?
I believe they're slightly higher right now than I believe it's a little over 11,000.
Okay.
And those may be just reimbursements still being processed.
Okay.
Amanda?
I guess I would just ask Annie, like, how would you choose who gets to go? I mean, it's true that not everyone always goes to a conference, but 14,000 wouldn't cover everybody getting to do something. So how would you choose?
Right. What I would do is prioritize who is on boards. So if Shauna or Dan or whoever are on boards, then that be the priority. I'm on a board. I don't always go, but committees, those on boards or committees on the state level be given priority to go. And for instance, I mean, I'm hoping it would be friendly. This is, that we can figure out it ourselves. So for instance, if I'm going for one day, I might or might not get a hotel, or I could maybe go and come back. But if it's meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, I might have to go the night before. But I would hope that we could all, try and keep the costs down and stay within that budget. So we'd look at the beginning of the year and see if we can stay within the budget. And then if there's money left over after that, and if we talk and somebody says, well, I like to go to this, Shauna and Dan or whoever says, I need this, I want to go to learn, I want to go to the whole conference. And then we look at that, and maybe we look at making sure people share rooms if they can.
Amanda, is this friendly to you?
No.
Okay, so we're going to have to vote, and I think we do have a second. But go ahead.
I guess I just would then, if this does pass and it becomes what the budget is for this line, I think that there should be some conversation spelling out that process, because because the process we have now is not that. And it could, yes, ideally everyone would be friendly, but if somebody wants to do something that's way more expensive and they appeal to the chair or government operations, I mean, it could get kind of unpleasant. So I guess if that becomes the budget line, I would just encourage you and whoever votes for it to spell out exactly how that's going to work.
Shauna, then Greg.
So I do just want to confirm there are a few things. If you are on a committee, you don't have to go to the conference. So if you're going to the spring or the fall conference, there have been many times that we've just literally driven up that morning and drive home. You don't have to pay for conference. Just to clarify, for being on the NICEAG board, my conference fees are waived. And if I have a board meeting, they pay for all of my hotel and food. And so it's just the gas.
Greg?
Oh, nice.
Well, first, Shauna, thank you for your service and taking a little less off the burden. Is this something that we could, I mean, Amanda, to your point, make contingent upon spelling out and adopting something in government operations? So rather than using target or one-time funds, using contingent funds for this and making it contingent upon spelling out a process for legislator training or NISAC attendance in GO. Would that be?
So you would just earmark some contingent funds?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's not what's on the table. Rich, then Deborah.
Yeah, Amanda, we do have a procedure that we approved at government operations, but you're saying it's not what is being proposed here.
I just don't think $14,000 is enough for everybody to go to a conference. So it wouldn't necessarily be fair.
Okay, but historically, we've never used the full amount, right? So
As far as I
maybe we're chasing a problem that we don't need to worry about. The other thing, just point of information, is that the fall conference in 2025 is scheduled to be in Niagara Falls. And in the past few years, was it Turning Stone and Sullivan County this year, so that it's a one-day, it's a lot closer. But Niagara Falls is a bit of a stretch for an up and back.
Donna? Oh, I thought, I'm sorry, it's Greg.
You are what you eat.
I just want to be clear that in this line item, this is 1010, so there would be no money allocated for local mileage reimbursement. Because my fear also would be that if we allocate to this line item, those funds get eaten up by local mileage submittals.
That's not what my amendment is about.
I know, I just want to make that clear for the record.
Ann, remember, we're talking about the amendment.
Never mind.
I was just clarifying the amendment.
I'm thinking.
Anyone else on the amendment that's been made by Ann? All right, so the amendment is to change the proposal from 7,500 to 14,000 in target.
Roll call.
Oh, we got to go back to roll call.
Thanks, Travis.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
No.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
No.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
No?
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
No.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Just a second, we're tallying.
Like to change the vote? Just joking.
Can change your vote if you want to, but,
8 to 6.
all right. The vote is 8 in the affirmative and 6 opposed, so the motion passes. The amendment passes. Now we're back to that being the actual motion of amendment now, and we're going to Deborah.
Yeah, so now that it's been amended, it can't be amended again, is that the deal?
No, it can.
Oh, it can, okay.
But you couldn't have amended Annie's amendment before we voted on it.
Ah, okay.
But you can propose something different.
All right, well, I want to circle back to Greg's idea, because I think since we don't really have any very good idea about how much of this money we're actually going to use, it might not be a bad idea to consider earmarking the amount that we've now agreed to in contingent, And people, once we've decided what our new process is for figuring out who gets to use the money and how much they get to use, people can ask for that, or Katrina can ask for that on our behalf. So I guess I would offer an amendment to Amanda's legislative amendment that we simply turn this into an earmark and contingent.
Is there a second? Seconded by Greg. Discussion. Amanda?
Is it friendly?
Oh, no, I think we should vote on it.
Okay.
I guess somebody can refresh my memory. Contingent fund is a separate fund we set aside, and it would come out of that pot. Okay.
We have to vote again.
And we have to vote again.
Veronica?
So is the idea here, if we change it to earmarking contingent funds, I should know this, but the current recommended budget has a line item for a contingency fund and it's got an amount allocated to it. And so if we're earmarking contingent funds, look, if we say yes to this amendment, to the amendment and also to the amendment, then the amount of money in the contingent fund will not change, but we will have earmarked some of it for this.
Right.
Okay.
But just for a point of information, most years we end up adding more money to the contingent fund because you always need more than you think you're going to need.
Rich?
I have a question for Lisa, or Norma, or Corey. Section 2, page 3, we show the contingent fund at 1.58 million, but then the county administrator recommended OTR is flat. Does that mean it's 1.58 or is it zeroed out?
It's not zeroed out. It's
1.58.
It's flat, yes.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay, on the second amendment here, to put it into contingent fund, subject to a process to be determined by the Government Operations Committee. Who? Norma?
So this is the entire amount into
14,000.
All 14,000.
Greg?
Yes, thank you, Mike. This would not have an impact on the levy,
No.
right? I just want that to be clear for our colleagues, that this is a way that in the event that we use it, it's already marked in there, but it's not going to have, we're not additionally putting an increase to the levy.
Nor are we using additional funds from the available fund balance.
Correct. And we also have a reserve for our contingent fund.
Is everyone clear? On this amendment, to the amendment, all in favor?
We need to do roll call.
Ah, that's right.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
No?
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
That's 13 ayes and 1 no. That passes the amendment. So now the main motion is the 14,000, which would go into contingency pending the process through the Government Operations Committee. Are we ready to vote on that? Go ahead.
A question.
Go ahead.
Amanda's original proposal was that this was money for just the chair and vice chair. So can I clarify, what is this money for that we're about to vote on?
I think it's what Annie said.
Yeah, Annie's was for everybody.
Any
Who could use it?
legislator.
Let's vote.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
14 ayes, that passes. Okay, we're moving right along. Now we're down to Deborah Dawson. Number 1, County Administration, the climate survey, a reduction of $60,000.
No, we've got Shauna's IT services, public wireless.
We also skipped break. I don't know if that matters.
Well, we generally take a break after about 2 hours.
It says in here, just so you know, it says 6 o'clock, we're scheduled to take a break, so some of us thought we were going to take a break, but.
I'll do whatever the group wants, but I usually do it at 6:30.
Go to 6:30. We're almost there. Let's get something done.
Keep going.
Okay. All right, going back to Shauna's IT services, public wireless, $12,689 in target. You want to move that?
I'd like to move that. Thank you.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ann. Discussion.
So this was something that was cut out of the budget, and Lauren brought it forward. It would make it very hard for anyone visiting to have public Wi-Fi. It would make it impossible for legislators, was my understanding, to have Wi-Fi here for us to print stuff. And it makes sense. I mean, the access needs to happen. So that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Ann?
I'm just going to also add that a lot of us have our own personal computers that we bring in, and this would allow us to continue to use public Wi-Fi, which I'm using right now.
I just recall the questioning when this came forward, that I think folks were pretty amazed that this was even put forward as the possibility of a cut in that department. And so I guess we don't have any choice here tonight if we want this to continue, but to put the money back in the budget. But it is, it was unusual to me. Ready to vote? Or Greg?
Yeah, I was, I think, maybe the one that was most surprised or vocal about it. So Shauna, thank you for bringing that forward. I also think one of the things IT failed to calculate was, and again, my intent and reason for wanting this was for public access, not necessarily for legislators, because I think that's more important that the public has access while in the facilities than we have access. But if we don't have this, and then all of the legislators need to use county devices, the additional expense that will cost the IT department, which is an unplanned expense. So I think it was a little penny wise, pound foolish for them. Hopefully we can find the money, and I think they should be really glad that Shauna brought this forward, because I would have liked to balance this with a $13,000 cut in that department's budget to pay for this.
Anyone else? Ready to vote?
You're not moving that, you're just
Let's
saying
vote.
that.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
No.
Mike Sigler,
No.
That's 12 ayes and 2 noes. It passes. Now, Deborah, County Administration Climate Survey, $60,000 reduction.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand that this climate survey is of some significance to our staff. But it's a tight year, and it just seemed to me that there were ways that we could use this money that would be, in the end, more supportive of our staff. For example, to provide them with many of the tools they asked for that Lisa couldn't include in her budget for financial reasons that are obvious. I think that we can defer the climate study for just one more year in the interests of investing differently and in better ways in our staff's well-being.
Veronica?
Yeah, I'm strongly against this, and I already told this at length to my colleagues. So just briefly, the climate survey has already been deferred for 2 years, so this would be a third deferral. And I am confused at how, I think that the climate survey helps us to figure out the ways we can invest in our staff that would be helpful to our staff, particularly the rank and file staff who don't get to come and present to us at what they need. Of course, our department heads are, I'm sure, doing their very best to sort of figure out collectively what is necessary for their departments. But some of these are giant departments with one department head, and there's different things you can ask in a climate survey that are really valuable. And at the end of the day, it is not that much money to genuinely ask questions to staff and say, we want to know what your perspective is, and, you know, fulfill I guess, a promise that we've been making for the last few years that, yeah, we're going to do this again.
Can I take that as a second? I forgot to get a second.
Sorry, no, you cannot.
Okay. Greg, is there a second? Just further discussion. Amanda, then, I'm sorry, Rich was first, then Amanda.
I was just going to say I will support the amendment. With that said, if it turns out in 2025 that it does look like our financial position is such that we could fund this, I would support or entertain a motion at that time to take it out of contingency and do it then. Thanks.
Amanda?
So this is one-time funds. So what happens when that line there that says one-time funds, $231,076, gets down to zero? We all explode, or it just goes negative?
You unlock the fund balance.
Okay.
Or roll
The real party starts.
I'm just saying, like, putting this money back into that pot allows us to pay for some of these things that everybody is voting for that keep passing. So.
Shauna, and then Ann.
So I also think that we can put this off for one more year. I also think, I mean, we just announced we are going to have a new county administrator that's going to start, and it would be nice for us to capture a year from now, or maybe a little bit more than a year from now, what the vibe is, and if we have morale issues a year into it. I mean, I think it would be good to hear so that we can see what the pulse is of our county. So I would support the amendment.
And then Veronica.
Thank you. I would, can I propose an amendment to put this into contingent fund?
You're allowed.
I'm going to propose, could I just say quickly why before we even second it? Or ask for a second? I'm just going to continue on. So proposing an amendment to put it in until,
So your amendment really is to fund or remove what's being suggested here of a $60,000 cut.
That's right. I'm sorry. This is to cut. That's right.
I don't know how exactly we do that.
Never mind.
I think if it fails, you could then move to put the existing money into contingent fund. Veronica?
I was going to say, I think it could be helpful to our new incoming county administrator to have information about the morale and such of our employees sooner rather than later. That said, I don't know how to administer a county, so I'm curious if Lisa or her deputies or anyone have thoughts on this particular point. Would you have preferred to have I guess maybe not you, Lisa, because you've been here forever, but would it be more helpful to have a climate survey that was performed?
That in a nice way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, would you prefer to have a climate survey done right after you arrived or a year and a half after you arrived in a new administrative role?
Well, I don't know whether she wants to answer that or not, but,
That's- you don't have to.
Don't forget, she has, it is in her recommended budget at this point. Go ahead.
I'll just say, I put it in for a few reasons that you'd mentioned. We have been putting it off. And at the staff town hall, even last week, the staff were asking about it. It is a diagnostic tool. It's many things, but for a county administrator, you can see it as a tool to understand, and the way that we've done it in the past, understand where there may be issues, morale issues, other types of issues in departments, or what departments have great morale, and then you can act on those results. So I think it would be a helpful tool for the next county administrator coming in, and I'll defer to your judgment about the timing.
Okay. Ann?
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to what Lisa said, but so from my point of view, this is something that, as we're having a new county administrator, to take this tool away is what this amendment's proposing. And one of the things that we know we have a hard time with is keeping staff morale and attracting new staff to the county. And one of the things that attracts new people is how we treat our employees. And so we don't know what thing, and from the last climate survey, I won't go into all of them, but we have instituted quite a number of things to help the morale, to help employees. And so to take this away and to stop it after we've already delayed it a few years, I just can't support this. I think we owe it to our employees. We owe it to recruitment going forward, not to be taking these things away or delaying them even further. And I think we owe it to the new county administrator to give them the information that they need to do their job. Thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, Deborah, thanks for bringing this forward. I think delaying it 1 year will do no harm.
Okay, anyone else? Are we ready to vote? This is on the proposal to reduce reduce it by 60,000.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
No.
Ann Corman.
No.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
No.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
We have 11 ayes and 3 noes. That passes. Now, I have a question. I think Mona was going to come for the next items, but not till, if you thought maybe, Lisa, till around 7. So I don't know how.
Being that we're ahead of schedule, I mean, we can try to maybe take the last item and then
Well, we're due for a break in 5 minutes, so I think we probably could go to a break, and then we could come back with the last 2 items here, and then come back to CJC if you wanted to do that. Would that be satisfactory to the group? Okay, let's.
There's a question.
Yes.
I mean, I guess if Mona was planning to be here, then if we come back and she's still not here, I'd rather, instead of doing the CJC without her, see if we could vote on some of the other amendments that were scheduled, if people are okay with it, that were scheduled for tomorrow, but that we have all known about for longer.
Like the green facilities do a geothermal process, which
Soil and water.
All right, well, let's see where we get to at that point. Let's go ahead and take a break and come back here at, why don't we say 20 of.
This is smooth sailing.
We're ready to go.
Mike?
Yes.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Is there any way that we can move up number 29 from Greg Mezzi, staffing for shelter? Because that is a target for 178, and I would like to see that, if it passes, hit our balance sheet before we start doing all these others.
Well, also, 51.
And 7.
I mean, there are some big ones on tomorrow night's schedule that have a substantial impact on how we vote on some of the other ones.
Well, let's get through what we've got tonight, and let's see what time we have left and what the inclination of the other legislators is as far as looking at those.
Okay.
Still haven't seen Mona yet. I still think it's a little bit early for her. So let's go to Ann, your county administration, restore CIC program funding.
That's CJC, Dan, so that does.
Oh, that's a CJC too. Yep. Excuse me. All right, then let's go to Greg's. County administration, language access implementation to reduce barriers, $100,000 in target.
I'd like to move that.
All right, is there a second? Seconded by Veronica.
May I speak to it?
Please.
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to just wolf down a meal during the break, so I'm just catching my breath here. I think this is incredibly important to create access within our community and to recognize probably the hundreds and hundreds of hours of staff time, probably also, Dominic, correct me if I'm wrong, machine learning, and trying to get our website to a point that is accessible by many people within our community. You can see the numbers here in the OTR request with Chinese simplified and traditional, French, Karen, Spanish, Russian, Arabic, and Vietnamese. This continues to just support the work that's done, and we lose a large part of the investment that we've already made in this process if we don't continue this. And I think this would be sending the wrong message to our community that we don't want my perception, I don't want to infer anyone's intent, but that we wouldn't be creating as an inclusive and welcoming community for those that are not native English speakers.
Shauna.
Personally, for me, it would be helpful if we passed or did not pass the other mandatory amendments so that I could see where we are with the tax levy. Because if we are able to do this and keep the tax levy, I would probably vote for it. But if I don't know, I'm not able to support it.
Deborah.
I have a question about this only because, as I understand it from the budget book, Lisa didn't approve this because, and it was requested as one time. Lisa didn't approve it because she was unable to recommend continuing this initiative to preserve general fund balance. So I'm confused. Are you proposing it as target or are you proposing it as one time?
It's on our sheets as target.
It is on our sheet as target, and because, and Dominic, correct me if I'm wrong on the dollars here, but it was, there's a 70-30 breakdown, right?
Yes.
Can you explain that for the group, please?
Yep. I don't know if is this working?
Oh.
Yep. It is $70,000 of that funding is for the software that allows us to manage all of the translations on the website and for our content materials. The $30,000 is for the additional human translation for critical public information. So that might be something like health-related information, elections-related information, following the language access policy.
That doesn't answer my question. Is it one time or is it target?
The request is for target because it's an ongoing expense, right? Because the $70,000 is something that we need to have to continue to maintain the language translation services through the website. And the $30,000 would be to maintain the resource of human translation for critical information.
That is correct.
Then why wasn't it requested as target in the first place?
In the original county administrator's budget?
Yeah, the request is one time.
Well, there's only so many ways to get to.
Lisa?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I think my memory serves, we had been funding this as a three-year one-time, and understanding the tight budget year we were in and trying to reach that 2% target, we knew it wouldn't be achievable under that. So it was requested at least as one time.
What year were we in?
We've gone through 3 years, so this would be the fourth time.
Rich?
Yeah, I guess I'm in the same position as Shauna stated. I'd like to know where we are on the other matters before voting on this.
Mike?
Well, go ahead, Greg.
I'd ask to postpone this until a later time to be brought back either this evening or tomorrow at the recognition of the chair. I know that's kind of a muddled way to do it.
We could do that. Can you just withdraw and I'll tell you we'll bring it back?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, okay. yeah. If that's good for the group.
Thank you.
All right, so where do we want to go now? Do we want to?
I think we ought to go to 51, frankly.
What's 51?
Request to go to
That's
51.
That's your support airport operations with room tax.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Because that pulls $270,000 out of one-time spending.
Mike, I guess we can do that if the group wants to.
Yeah.
Any objection to that? My question would be, what's the mechanics of it? Greg?
May I move it?
If there's no objection, yes.
All right, I'd like to move amendment number 51, which is allocate $270,000 from the 2025 STPB capital development grants to support the airport operations.
And I'm seconding that.
Seconded by Amanda. Okay, you may have just explained what you're looking to do. You're going to take it out of the development grants?
Yeah, so.
And this is a one-time?
Correct, and I want to be adamant about the one-time nature and use of this. I struggle to support this, but I see the value in compromise with my colleagues, and I also see the value in our airport. And the thought process was the tourism capital grants are suspended for 1 year, and that $270,000 be allocated to support the county's taxpayer contribution to the airport. So it's essentially using room tax dollars. It's not county taxpayer dollars that have been collected or that are to be collected to support airport operations. And the airport can direct it to help either with their operations or offset debt service payments or whatever. But I also think one of the reasons why the county taxpayers are being asked to support the airport is because of the capital debt service that they're including or that we've incurred to make our airport more attractive, and also because of a rebuilding of our flights and passenger facility charges.
Rich and then Deborah.
Yeah, I just have a question. What impact will this have on our tourism grant programs?
So the tourism capital grant, which is not taking from ACOD, it's not taking from tourism advancement, it literally is from the tourism capital grant program, which is administered through IAED. There's a $20,000 administrative piece for IAED and a $250,000 in the grant line. That $270,000 that's specifically for the tourism capital grant program would go away in the 2025 budget. So it would just suspend that grant for 1 year.
So how has that money been allocated in prior years?
Healthily. This past year, we had about $900,000 in requests, and I think we had 200 and plus a similar amount to allocate out. This goes to things like feasibility studies for tourism or cultural assets throughout the county. It goes to building projects, capital either planning or improvements to our tourism and or essentially our tourism assets across the county.
Is there somebody we should be hearing from that could represent the groups that would no longer have access to this money?
I feel I'm just as strong of an advocate for this program as anybody, but I don't know if Nick was planning to be here tomorrow or not. I'm happy to share with you what the most recent tourism capital grants were to fund. If you give me a second to pull it up on my screen, I can, if somebody else wants to make a comment.
While you're doing that, let's go to Deborah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give Greg an opportunity. He and I had discussed this at some length, just between the two of us, and he shared information from his conversations with Nick.
And Katie.
Yeah, so I just thought that probably it would benefit all of us to hear what those discussions were about.
Randy.
Yes, Greg, has the receipts coming in from the hotel taxes that increased this year over your budget?
No, projections are that it's pretty close to the budget. If you remember, in years past, there was a significant increase to collections as opposed to budget. I think the SCPB and the Budget Committee of the SCPB, which, full disclosure, I'm a member of, took a more proactive or aggressive approach to the budget in the event that it wouldn't necessarily show an increase or windfall. So we're pretty much on the line of what we've budgeted for this year coming in. And I don't know, Lori, if you have any additional information. I'm guessing not right at your fingertips. But we're pretty much at budget.
But considerably more than 2023?
Similar to 2023, it was a very slight increase to 2023, if my memory is serving me correctly.
Okay.
From actuals to what we budgeted for 2024.
Okay, thank you.
I have the document up for this past year.
Go ahead.
So what the 2024 tourism capital grants, which this was passed last HED meeting and will be at the legislature this next Tuesday. Friends of Stewart Park, wayfinding signage and trail pavement repair project, Wharton Studio Museum design development for the Wharton Studio and Cafe. That's a feasibility study. Friends of Ithaca Farmers Market, pathway to pavilion, accessing the bounty of Ithaca's Farmers Market capital improvement. The Chamber Climate Resilient Capital Upgrade at Taganic Falls Visitor Center capital improvement. Finger Lakes Land Trust enhanced accessibility for the Roy Parch Preserve capital improvement. State Theater LED stage lighting improvements capital reserve. Trumansburg Conservatory acoustic ceiling capital improvement. Lansing Greenway feasibility study. Science Center sustainable infrastructure upgrades capital improvement. And bringing curling to Tompkins County, feasibility study to dedicate to a dedicated curling facility.
Is that rutabaga curling or just real curling?
Real curling.
Are those ones that were funded or proposed?
Those were ones that were funded. And then the ones that were not funded for a variety of reasons, which are included, and I don't want to get into that on the floor here right now, but GX Red and White Cafe and Arts Center, Kitchen Theater Company feasibility study, St. James Underground Railroad Museum, Hammerstone Capital Improvement feasibility study, and CNY Polo Arena capital improvement. There was requested $912,000. And there was recommended $328,000 in funding. Some received as little as 20% of their ask, and some received as much as 97% of their ask.
May I ask? So this is coming to us at our next meeting.
Correct.
And when will the funding go out?
Funders?
No, I mean, I'm just curious because this is the 2024 funding. So it's not really going out till the end of the year.
It's the 2024 awards, and then I believe there's a contract period in which there's a set period of time in which they have to access the funds from those contracts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know what that set period of time is.
So what I'm thinking is, if the 2024 funding isn't going to go out the door until maybe the beginning of 2025, that if we skip the 2025 funding and get started on the 2026 funding, there wouldn't be that long of a gap. If we got an early start on the 2026 funding, there wouldn't be that much of a gap in this program.
Yeah,
we skipped 2025.
I don't want to speak for Katie's, sort of the planning department, and Nick as that, because they have to administer that grant program and, support IAED in the administering of that grant program. But logically, your comments would make sense.
And so you talked at length with Nick about this, because we discussed that. Mm-hmm. And has anybody talked to Heather and the folks at IAED?
No, because these are our decisions to make. And I don't like bringing this forward.
No,
I think that this money does good work. I also think it's important to preserve the program's fund balance in an effort to make that program self-sustaining. And
the airport is a qualified.
The tourism asset.
Yes. Thank you.
Greg, if this is one time, what do we do the next year?
Well, my understanding is that the county burden, Norma?
Oh, this is year 3 of a 3-year OTR, so.
For the airport funding?
For the airport funding at this point.
Yeah, but if there's a need after that, we may have to look again.
We may have to, yeah.
So we're hoping, as we've seen with the airport, and I think it was a 24% increase in PFCs or some mid-20s year-over-year increase. We're seeing load factors in the 80 to 90% at the airport. We're currently looking at the SCASD grant, which would bring additional air service to a desirable location. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity that is about to hit at the airport as we continue to rebound from the impacts that the airports had and sustained from COVID, the COVID period of time.
Randy?
Yeah, thanks, Greg, bringing this forward, being creative about it. But I have a budget question. So we voted to close the customs facility, and that will take effect February 1? I think there's a 120-day waiting period, I think, something like that. But at some point in 2025, it's going to suspend operations. So is there any savings from that, and is it in the budget?
Yes, Roxanne is factoring that into her 2025 budget.
Thank you.
I'm just a little worried that we might be setting up the airport for bad feelings by the folks that maybe had intention to apply for these grants otherwise, and without having a chance to talk about it. I suppose they'll have a chance at the public hearing, but take the whole thing in 1 year, that's a big bite. Amanda?
Yeah, I think we also have heard from a lot of taxpayers who don't want to be using our taxpayer money to subsidize the airport. People have problems with that. And, you know, my initial idea was to take money from somewhere else that is not coming from our local taxpayers, and which would be room tax, and take that burden off of the people who live here. Certainly, some folks may not like that, but again, like, it's 1 year. And I appreciate all of the organizations that, you know, apply for this funding, and think they're all doing great work, but it is our decision to, you know, how to use our room tax funding, and I think this is a good way to use it this year.
Other comments? Lee?
So does this have the effect of reducing the $641,000 third year one-time payment by the 200 and some odd? Okay, frees up that difference into the one-time.
Rich?
Thanks.
So in our budget book, section 2, page 15, that describes the room tax, this would come out of the 3.9 million tourism promotion. Is that, I just want to make sure I understand that. And I note we have a line for unallocated revenue that shows up elsewhere.
Also, tourism promotion appears in section 4, page 259, where you actually see the line items. And hold on, give me a second. This would fall out of 54,444 development grants, where the fiscal year 2025 budget. So section 4, page 262, it's 802,200. So this would leave ACOD, Arts and Cultural Organizational Development grants, the Tourism Advancement grants, and the, what's the local one called? Celebrations grant, community celebrations.
And so you're targeting capital because those are programs that could wait a year and then go.
Correct. And I also, in my mind and my rationale was, we just made a large capital investment through obligating us of the debt service from the airport. And it seemed like capital for capital kind of, in my mind, it made sense.
I will support. Thank you for the explanation.
Others? Ready to vote? Go ahead.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
That's unanimous, 13 ayes. Okay. It's after 7. Should we go to CJC now, Lisa?
If she's not here, we'll just wait and we can do other things.
Can we do the security staff?
What are you suggesting, Shauna?
Do you mind if I move the security staff that's 227,000?
Yes, second that.
What number is that?
Yeah, which number?
7.
It's for tomorrow's, number 7.
Oh, out of tomorrow. Anybody, any objection to that? Shauna, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to move number 7, emergency response security staff. And it's 227,139 coming out of Target.
There's a second. Seconded by Amanda. Discussion on this one. This is one I think we've talked about for some time.
It has. So this was one of the options that was offered by county administration. And this specific offering is a security manager and staffing of our mental health building. And that seems to be right now where we need to focus some of our security efforts.
Greg.
Will this be able to be implemented as of January 1, or is there a ramp-up period expected for this? Will we need 100% of this in 2025?
We could start potentially, once the budget passes, posting the positions to, well, let me rephrase. We could start recruiting early so that we can maximize the funding, Or if you're suggesting a smaller number, we could wait until further in the year.
May I respond, Mike?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting a lower number. I'm just trying to understand the reality. Is this going to be 100%, or should we apply a vacancy factor, a ramp-up period, right? This costs us about $18,928.25 per month if this passes, which, for the record, I'm fully in support of. I just want to know, do we need to burden the levy with 100%? If we're not going to get around to fully staffing or full operations by February or March or April or June or July.
Go ahead.
So once if this were to pass, we could again post and start recruiting in the fall, anticipating January 1, and we do already have a vacancy factor applied across the board. So that's how I would answer it.
If this is going to be continuing, I think you'd just be kicking the can, because it would have to come back in the 26 budget.
If we continue maintenance of effort.
Other comments? Dan?
I just want to clarify again, this is just for the Green Street location?
My understanding is it's just for mental health. Is that right, Lisa?
So the security manager position would be, I believe, stationed at the Department of Emergency Response and would be monitoring cameras and responsible across the county for all of the locations, whereas the either security officer or special patrol officer would be specific to the Green Street location.
Thank you.
Lee?
Given the Green Street location and mental health, is there opportunities for any revenue funding through state agencies for the mental health aspects?
Had this conversation, and I know Bridget had this conversation with Frank about it, and I don't believe for the Green Street location. I would have to double check. If so, we've accounted for it.
Randy?
Yeah, I'm not going to support this. I do think we need to focus on security issues, but I think there's a different solution that I won't go into. So,
Anyone else? Rich?
Yeah, I feel like we do have an issue we need to address, but I guess I'd like to learn more before spending this kind of money. And I'd like to know how we're going to decide on the amendments regarding the sheriff's office for the special patrol officers and deputy sheriff, with the flexibility that might come from that direction, and also how hiring is going at IPD. So I won't support right now, but I'd consider this as a contingency spend in 2025 if we get to a point. We need to do it then. Thanks.
Other comments? Deborah?
This is more of a question. Lisa, you said that the big honcho would be at Dewar, keeping an eye on everyone. The boots on the ground person would be here in Green Street. So what happens if there's a need for that person elsewhere, either here in the downtown campus or at the health department or wherever? I mean, how fast can that person get around? Are we giving them a car? Or is there money in the...
No, that's not in the planning. The location was based on data for data of 911 calls, incident reports, departmental requests, et cetera. There is, somewhat of an expectation that perhaps if services are needed to be deployed elsewhere, if something needs to happen quickly, 911 will still be a main source of, for a phone call. But, I think that there is recognition that this person's services might be able to be utilized in a different location if absolutely necessary in the moment.
So basically, this is just Department of Mental Health?
Yes, mainly.
Wow.
Well, this, and I think there was also factored into this request a half-time person for, to spell, or if a person was sick or needed vacation, and/or if there needed to be coverage for legislature meetings, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
Amanda?
Well, just clarifying, but this was also like the security manager or coordinator, or whatever you want to call them. I mean, they're looking at all of our buildings, they're looking at all of our systems, they're looking at all of our evacuation plans and buttons and all of that stuff. Like they're managing our entire structure of how our security and safety operates. So it's—
Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, so this is not just like 1.5 employees who are going to stand at mental health. Like this is like a whole overarching position. Yes, right?
What is being requested right now are, I want to make sure I'm, reduced by one. We had a security manager. Let me just make sure. I wasn't entirely prepared to speak to this, but I can look it up.
It's in section 4, page 104, if that helps you.
227, 139. So this covers a security manager, as Amanda mentioned, that would be positioned at the Department of Emergency Response, monitoring cameras, monitoring doors, locking, operating in a proactive way, providing training, reviewing plans across all departments. As well as one full-time security officer positioned at Green Street and one part-time security officer that would help with vacations, sick, and/or other deployments as necessary. So it's 2.5 position.
Other questions? Susan?
I know that there has been an increased need for security officers. They probably have called IPD a number of times at mental health. I mean, I've certainly seen an increase of activity there. Is that one of the reasons for this request, is due to an increased need?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Anna?
Yeah, I think the one reason why I really brought this forward is that we've had conversations, this legislature has had conversations about the safety of our employees. We've seen an uptick of incidents at our Human Services building, and we've seen some at mental health as well. And we've talked about what we can do to have the people that visit our buildings as well as our staff feel safer. And the idea of having someone that's actually coordinating and doing the research, collecting data, and kind of coming up with a game plan for us moving forward, I think that makes sense. With the idea that we're probably going to have more conversations in the upcoming years of how to staff these buildings and how to, unfortunately, have to make them safer.
Anyone else?
Travis?
Sorry, Travis, didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
All right, Mike, thank you. I understand the need for security. I agree with Randy. I don't necessarily think this gets it done. I think there are better ideas out there. Having somebody monitor cameras, I don't understand how this moves us that much closer to being safe, so I can't support this right now.
Anyone else? Let's vote.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
No.
Randy Brown.
No.
Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
No.
Rich John.
No.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
No.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Seven ayes and 6.
Just checking on the voting in EBC, and we do have majority of the whole, 7 votes, so it carries. 7 to 6.
We need a majority of the number in attendance, and Mike Sigler has asked to be excused during recess, so 7 would just pass.
Well, do we want to go back and start talking about the CJC staffing?
Yes, please.
Deborah Dawson, number 20.
Mona is here.
I'm sorry? Yes, Mona Smiley has joined us.
Come on up, girl. Okay.
Yes?
I understand that rule, but I would just be curious, have we followed that for every single one to this point, based on the number of in attendance?
Yes, I believe we have.
Okay, so in some cases, something would only have needed 6 to pass if 2 legislators weren't?
No, it still needs 7. You'd have to have 11 for it to pass with 6.
Got it, okay.
And Travis doesn't count towards quorum. So.
But he doesn't count towards quorum, but he votes.
But he votes, yeah. It's just that Mike,
So we only have 12,
no, we have 13.
but if Travis doesn't count towards quorum,
He doesn't,
We have
Do we have Katrina weigh in?
yeah, that's what I'm just trying to understand this.
Okay, let her
Travis doesn't count towards quorum present in the room, but he counts towards voting for the majority.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
And right now, we need
Yeah,
7
cool, we
to
just need
pass
quorum to exercise the business of the meeting.
To call it to
Yeah.
order, yes.
That rule goes back to when we used to get many fewer people at the EBC meetings than we have now, many years ago. All right, Deborah, go ahead.
Okay, so I offer legislative amendment 21 and 21A. You have to consider them together. And before I talk about this, I'll wait for a second.
Seconded by Rich.
Okay, first of all, I want to make it really clear to everyone that I am not recommending that we cut CJC's funding. But I think, this is CJC's 4th year. This is the end of the care groups, isn't it? Or the 3rd year of the care groups?
2025 will be the 3rd year of the care team.
And then I think after that, CJC may change. There may be different programs. I was just looking for a way to fund it for the remainder of the care group program, and then we can reconsider what the program's going to look like, what the costs are going to be, and how we're going to fund it going forward. That is why I was suggesting that we take it out of target this year and put it in one-time funding. And next year will be a year where we will reassess and figure out what we need to go forward.
So basically, the net effect of your
It's just to move the
motion
funding out
is
of
simply
target
to change it
into one-time.
from target to one-time. One-time, one year, right?
And with an eye on where we are with the levy change and our one-time funds as well.
Okay. Discussion. Ready to vote? Go ahead.
What's wrong with you people?
Seriously.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
No.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
12 to 1, that carries. Okay, let's go to Ann Corman. Restore CJC program funding, $11,558 in target.
Thanks, Mike. So this is ID number 50, and this is to restore back, let me get the numbers here, the county's portion of the funding that was just talked about had been reduced in the budget from $93,022 to $81,464. And this amendment proposes to restore that funding of the $11,558 to bring it back to the full funding. And as I put in the amendment, this reduction in their allocation will significantly impact the programming that they're doing. And so I tried to summarize it in there. It includes officer wellness, recruitment and retention, youth engagement, community dashboard, community celebrations. So this, and just to detail one more part of that, is the working group, including law enforcement leadership from the city and the sheriff's department. And just as a reminder, if you're looking at our strategic plan often, like I sometimes do, we'll say that, this covers 4 of our objectives in that strategic plan. I'll just read 3 of them real fast. Enhance employee emotional mental health support, enhance recruitment and retention of qualified employees, and bring services and outreach to communities outside of downtown Ithaca.
All right, is there a second? Seconded by Veronica. And for clarification,
sure.
After the last vote, which moved that into target, or into one time, and this is in target, would you want to move that to one time?
Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up. Yes, I am moving that, and the funds would be in one time.
Okay. Is that okay with the seconder? All right. So discussion. Donna?
I guess I'm confused because I was under the understanding that the rate that was recommended was reduced because Mona's job was going to be different, with the assumption also that the sheriff was not participating, and that the data analyst was going to move over to the DA's office, so there would be less funding needed.
Assigned counsel.
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
Can I ask that Mona help clarify this?
Sure.
Thanks for coming, Mona.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. The services that we are looking to continue, or we had some that we are also looking to, excuse me, institute or begin for next year, are the services that are ones that are going to be impacted by the reduction. Yes, Matthew's position will go under assigned counsel So, we recoup that savings.
And that's the data analyst, right?
Yeah, sorry. I should call him by his title, not his name. I apologize. But there's still things that are not going to be able to be accomplished that we were looking to do to expand the CJC. My role, as far as I am concerned or am aware of, is still going to be the project coordinator. So there's still plans and, recommendations that the CJC is going to continue to do. They'll have to be creative on how we get some of them done if that funding is reduced and not reinstated. So if that answers your question or hits your concern?
I guess my question is, if you do not receive this funding, what would be reduced?
Okay, so Ann actually asked for that information. That's what I'm referring to here. So I did share it out with legislatures. So the transparency and accountability, the community dashboard, there'll be a significant impact or reduction. I'm not sure what it's going to look like with having Matthew under assigned counsel yet.
And if I could interject, I put this in the write-up for the amendment. If you want to look, there's an email you received from Mona on 9/27/24.
Okay. Thank you. So what we did was we went through and we talked about three categories: the transparency and accountability, alternative services, and then community healing and engagement. So each one of the plans have been laid out and what it would look like, so we wouldn't be able to continue the recruitment and retention. And that's something that's a long-term plan that we're looking at, working with law enforcement on, with an applicant tracking system and different community events that would engage the community members interested in a law enforcement career. We talk about, the community resource hubs will be able to be continued uninterrupted. Like I said, the dashboard would have a significant impact or reduction in what Matthew or data analysis position is able to cover. The youth engagement initiatives would be significantly impacted or reduced just based off of things that we're trying to work on with strengthening relationship with law enforcement and the young people here in our community. Community celebrations would not be able to be accomplished because there is some funding that goes along with that. And then officer wellness. We are contracting with Cayuga Health right now to provide those services, the nutrition and dietitian services that officers identified through a survey we conducted as services that they are interested in receiving. So with that funding cut, we wouldn't be able to continue the contract with Cayuga Health to cover that service.
Other comments? Go ahead, Amanda.
Just a small thing, but on one sheet, this is listed as number 49, and on the new sheet, it's listed as 50.
It should be 48. She just corrected me. It should be 49.
40, well, that's true. It's 50 on this sheet, the updated sheet, but when you got this
49.
packet, it's 49.
Okay.
So I was going by the last one.
The same page.
All right. At number 49, is that okay with everybody?
It's
Great.
49 or 50.
All right, so ready to proceed to a vote? This is 11,550.
Travis.
There's a hand, Mike. Travis has a hand.
Go ahead, Travis.
I just want to say I appreciate Lisa being able to move things around to lessen the impact of the funding on the budget. I do think that with the significant gains that have been made over the last year, even without our sheriff participating countywide, we need to give the CJC every advantage possible to be as successful as they can be in 2025. So I definitely am going to support this funding. I don't want to have this conversation next year and wonder what if we gave the CJC more support, what could have been done. I want to know that we did everything possible in order to make this successful, because this has a tremendous impact on a lot of people in this community.
Thank you. Amanda?
So is this one time or target?
This is one time.
One time.
Okay.
It's 1 year, one time. Same as the last vote.
But yeah, changed from how it's written under 49 or 50.
Or 48.
Or 48. But it's really 49.
I'll flip you for it. Okay. Does everyone know what you're voting for or against? Go ahead.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
13 ayes, that's unanimous, that passes. Now, it's 7:30. We ready to go home?
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow night, first thing we're going to do is hear from Norma about the shuffling of the assessment over targets.
Can we do that now? That would be so fun.
Huh?
Is there
What are we
any
gonna do,
appetite to
shuffling?
keep going, Mike? And just finish it off tonight?
No.
No.
We don't do well when we get
You want to
tired.
go to, no, I don't think we ought to do that. We've taken off a couple, so that's going to shorten it up tomorrow night, but I think we ought to put it over. Amanda?
Could we get, for tomorrow, one of these charts that only lists what is left to do? So I don't have to keep going back and forth between different papers? Thanks.
Greg?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we don't forget about language access tomorrow.
No, I've got that, I've got a big arrow pointing down here.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that doesn't get left behind.
Ann?
So also, one of the things that I don't want to have people forget is that there may be an amendment made tomorrow to lower the tax levy. And, by definition, it can't really be put in very well in advance because the number might change. And also, in my opinion, it needs to be the last thing done anyway. So I just wanted to remind everyone that that might happen.
Give me a second. Yeah. Katrina's got the resolutions that we hopefully will be adopting tomorrow night. She can pass them out. They have blanks in them, and we'll have to fill them in tomorrow night. Ann?
Mike, just want to let people know for the, trying to shuffle through my papers, the amendment that I'll be proposing tomorrow night, number 42 for the Green Facilities Department of Emergency Response Geothermal Project. I'll be, since that's contingent on receiving grant funds, I'll be moving it for the portion for this year from target to one time. So that's what I'll be proposing tomorrow night.
All right, that's a heads up. Anything else tonight? All right, you did well.
Lifelong decision.
Recess until tomorrow.
Norma, is that?